It's 7 p.m. here in Singapore. I'm Glenda Chong.
I'm Timothy. Go live from Cebu with the latest in Typhoon Haiyan relief operations in the central Philippines.
And Tim Tico is standing by at the airport in Cebu City. Tim, Cebu has been the base for dispatching aid into Tacloban. What kind of progress are you seeing there?
Well, Glenda, up until today, there's still a buzz of activity from military planes flying relief goods in and out of Cebu to Tacloban and points beyond. You can, in fact, still see supplies around the airport apron this morning. We are stranded here at the airport after our so-called special flight to Tacloban this morning was canceled. After waiting for 6 hours, we were told congestion at the Tacloban airport from relief flights made it very difficult for us to touch down on time. Special daily flights were added this week to facilitate the quick transfer of aid and relief into Tacloban and also to fly survivors out of there, those who want to leave. There are, of course, other ways to get into Tacloban, but those could take up to 10 hours by ferry and then by land, or by hiring a private jet or a chopper, which is what some media companies, I was told, are doing. Channel News Asia's Christine Ong, though, managed to get in by ferry and by car over the weekend, only to witness hordes of Taclobanos trying to get out of the city. Here's her report.
Here at the airport of Tacloban City, thousands of residents are desperate to leave as relief aid have just started to come into this badly devastated city in the central Philippines. Every day, military planes would fly in relief aid and medical supplies from the capital, Manila, and then fly out residents that badly need to get out of what they say is already an unlivable city. Logistical hurdles in distributing these relief aid is a major challenge to relief efforts. While aid is piling up, the government continues to seek a system that will fast-track the distribution of these aid to the most affected areas.
We certainly understand the frustration of a lot of people, and we feel we're frustrated ourselves. But I think we need to start looking at this from a less emotional point of view and see what's happening, and perhaps it might be more productive to help get things done.
So far, 43 international donors have pledged and have sent assistance to support the relief and recovery operations here. More than $126 million in aid have been raised for the victims of Super Typhoon Haiyan. But more help is needed to be able to help the people of the Central Philippines recover from this devastation. Christine Ong, Channel News Asia, in Tacloban, Leyte, the Central Philippines.
Well, the Philippine President, Benigno Aquino, is now trying to establish himself as a disaster manager-in-chief after his administration came under fire for its slow response to the crisis. President Aquino has been visiting the affected areas since arriving in Tacloban yesterday. And today, he toured the coastal town of Palo, which is about 15 minutes south of Tacloban, also in Leyte province. A presidential spokesman says Mr. Aquino wants to make sure typhoon victims have ample supplies that can be sustained in order to move on to the rehab stage. Some streetlights and the town hall in Palo are also functioning again after engineers patched up 3 generators there. Authorities say full power should be restored by Christmas time. But there is much more that needs to be done. President Aquino also promised that he would base himself in the affected region until he is satisfied that the relief operation is running as effectively as it should.
Of course, like any other human being, one recognizes you cannot really challenge Mother Nature. But the overall question is, with any casualty, under my watch especially, what we want to try and maintain is what more can we do to minimize the casualties, number one, and the disruptive effects.
Well, pledges of aid from around the world is still coming in. China says it is ready to send emergency medical personnel to the Philippines after its earlier pledges of financial and material aid were criticized as being too little. We spoke about last week. China says its rescue teams will depart when conditions allow. Meanwhile, Japanese aid arrived in Tacloban City, 7 trucks full of tent, generators, water filters, sleeping mats, and water. Japan also dispatched 2 warships today to the Philippines carrying some 650 troops and 6 helicopters. They are scheduled to arrive in the Philippines by this Friday. Let's cross now to Bantayan Island. Channel News Asia's Jack Broad is monitoring the efforts there. Jack, what have you seen in Bantayan? How bad is the damage and what's needed there the most?
Good evening, Tim. Yeah, the damage here really is widespread and significant. We've been travelling around Bantayan, the entire island today. It's a small number of isolated fishing villages. These are rural areas, and what we've seen is damage that's far worse than anywhere else where we've been travelling through North Cebu over the past week. Estimates at the moment, just in one municipality of 3 that are here, that 6,000 houses have been totally destroyed. A lot more have been badly damaged. 10,000 families are displaced. There is debris all across roads, power lines strewn across the roads as well, trees down everywhere. This island really has been pummeled. But the good news is that aid has been coming here in ample supply. People do have food. That's an encouragement. Markets are starting to open again, and while the prices of some of the foods have inflated, people are getting the sustenance that they need. In terms of water, that hasn't really been an issue here. The island actually has reservoirs that people have been able to tap, so that's also encouraging. Plenty of people getting around in cars and on motorcycles, so fuel is here. In terms of medicine, there are significant deployments from various teams. MSF has a team here, that's the international crew from France. There are also medical teams from Cebu city government that have been provided to provide more relief, and also local government operations. Main concern though is shelter. As you can imagine, with 10,000 families displaced or without roofs over their heads, they are being exposed to the elements, and that is the main concern. People are out there trying to rebuild their houses, but it's slow going. So we've been travelling and speaking to NGOs today. There are 60 NGOs, other foundations, private companies here assisting on the ground. They say shelter now is their #1 priority.
All right, Jack, it sounds like they are on their road to recovery. What about long-term concerns?
Yeah, there really are long-term concerns here. As you can imagine, with the rural area, a lot of people harvesting their own food. So we're talking about coconuts, bananas, a lot of fishing villages, as I mentioned, and fishermen just aren't going out to sea. Their boats have been severely damaged by the typhoon as it swept through here, and their #1 concern now is actually providing shelter for their own families. They're not being able to work, so over the long term, that's going to be an issue. Also important to note in Bantayan is this is the egg capital of Cebu. It provides poultry and egg for a huge region. A lot of those chicken farms that we visited today have been totally destroyed. We met one man, he cares for 10,000 hens. 1,000 of them have been killed. A significant amount more he's had to sell at really cheap prices. To give you an example, a chicken normally gets sold for about 25 Singapore dollars. Now they're selling it for $5. So it's difficult to know what the outcome will be from that, because people from the community are being able to access chicken and eat cheaply. But in the long term, these companies are really suffering. So as well as that, tourism. This is a very popular area for people from the local area to come and visit the beach. It's a pristine stretch of sand. That's been severely damaged. And like the rest of the Philippines, they're really going to have to get tourists back to these areas in order to invigorate the local economies.
All right, Jack, thanks for that. Jack Board there live with us in Bantayan Island in Cebu Province. Let's move further now to the east in Guian in Samar Province. It was the first town in the Philippines to be hit by Super Typhoon Haiyan, and its mayor has been praised by President Aquino for keeping fatalities down to under 100. Channel News Asia's Steve Clark gives us a first-hand account of the situation there.
To paraphrase Bono from U2, there's been a lot of talk about this town, maybe too much talk. This is Guian town in the southern part of Samar Province. There's been a lot of talk about massive amounts of destruction, massive amounts of casualties. Well, the destruction we can confirm. We're standing here at a crossroads, and as you will see as I walk around, there are no houses intact. If you can spot one, you're better than us. 95% destruction. But let's talk about the other big figure, the casualties. The mayor yesterday was praised for keeping the casualties to under 100. As of November 16th, the figure is officially 99. Now let's just hope that that figure in the future will not need to be updated any further.
Now, let's not forget relief efforts in Manila, the capital. A tent city has been set up there at the Villamor Air Base for evacuees, and thousands are helping out. Channel News Asia's Adil Sabir with this report.
It's actually been quite amazing. I mean, we've been here since 10 o'clock this morning, and literally there are lines and lines and lines of people who are just turning up. The coordination has been actually quite good. People are actually on the ground, helping pack, helping those who are arriving, providing them. I mean, there's a lot of these social welfare NGOs were working here just to provide people some sort of counselling as well. But roughly they think that possibly in the region of, that's all over the Philippines, perhaps in the region of 15,000 volunteers have stepped up just here alone at the airbase. Like I said, between 700 to 800, and that's per shift. But they're all in good spirits, and even though the people have had a traumatic ride over here, they seem to be in pretty decent spirits as well, carrying whatever belongings they have. But there's a lot of aid here on the ground, which has finally been sent over to this airbase.
And that's all we have from Cebu, Glenda. We will make our way again to Tacloban bright and early tomorrow morning, so we hope to make it there right on time. Glenda?
All right, thanks, Tim, for that update. And all this week, we have our correspondents in the Philippines, and we will bring you updates from them.